Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the final day here for the American Regional Qualifiers. It's down to what do we have? 4 teams left, I believe it is. Again, I'm Naisu, joined here with Mirko to bring you the action for our final matches and to figure out who is going to be locking in those spots to the WEC, the road to Riyadh, of course. Mirko, how we doing, man?
Doing great as always. I think me personally, I'm feeling extra hyped for today, right? Because really, we got the build-up of the last 3 days, getting all the way here to the playoff stage where we're going to decide, or actually, they will decide who goes to the next stage. Will it be USA or Ecuador in our first match? And then later in our second match, even, got Mexico versus Colombia. And these are the matchups that we were really already trying to talk about, right? The matches that we were anticipating, Naisu, all the way from the group stages because of how good they were in the groups. And it would just be really cool to see Colombia maybe go up against the US later on in the finals. Again, the finals won't really decide if they go because technically we'll have 2 slots here. Yeah. But still, it's a fun thing. I really just hope they don't do the Indonesia-Malaysia thing last time in the Asian regional qualifiers.
Hey, I don't know. Maybe they will. As far as I know, we're only streaming those 2 matches that we have, of course, between the 4 teams. I think their last match, they'll probably play it off stream, for those that are interested with that. But yeah, ultimately what they're after is, of course, just locking in those slots. So we got 2 left from this group to move forward. And, something that I think a lot of people wanted to watch happened, of course, yesterday where the United States played against Mexico. And we had word from them that they 2-0'd them, I believe. So, I can't wait to see that second matchup. But first off, we have, of course, today's schedule. Like we just mentioned, it is going to be USA versus Ecuador here, Colombia and Mexico later on. So that's all that we're going to have for this stream for you guys today as we round this up. And, it's been pretty fun, man. I mean, like you and I both have done nearly all the online qualifiers, right? All the way starting from... Yeah, everything except for Europe because we were busy elsewhere. And, eventually we'll get to go to Riyadh for the 3rd time this year, but for the WEC. But, this has been fun, and it's been really nice to see the different play styles, I would say, from the different regions. I think that's really what stood out to me from here. I mean, we're pretty well versed in seeing, USA, for example, through the MLBB scene, despite it being some different players, not just different IGNs. But even to see like Ecuador, for example, and Colombia, teams that we don't typically get to see too often, has been really a treat so far for the American Regional Qualifiers. And, I got to ask you, Mirko, we already know how USA has played. They've even brought some, I would say, some flavor themselves to the table. But anything that really stuck out for you for Ecuador, especially for the past couple days here?
The fact that Ecuador have already, gotten a pretty good record for themselves on blue side is pretty impressive in my opinion, right? If we take a look at their group stage run, most of their victories, well, almost all their victories, except obviously the last game up against, I believe it was...
Guatemala?
Panama? I think it was Panama. But yeah, up until that very last game, they were only getting wins on blue side, right? So they're really abusing the fact that the blue side, it has been, the prime side to actually get wins, but... I don't know, up against Team United States, I think it's going to be a bit different, right? Because even if you do get blue side, United States, they tend to not care about anything in the draft at all. Sometimes they'll just leave everything open and pick up stuff that we've seen before. I won't mention it, some of these picks are quite ridiculous. But hey, it worked out for United States. They truly were free to choose whatever they wanted. They went 5 arrival, 5 red trees. Right. And, I thought in game number 2 that if things played out a bit more played a bit differently in the early game, that could have been a loss to the United States. But they ended up breaking the world record for the fastest professional MLBB game in history. It was also in IESF, by the way, that we had the last record. It was 6 minutes and 40 seconds, 40 something seconds, but it was in Bali, for IESF Bali, and it was Vietnam versus Namibia. So quite a while ago, and I thought on that day, I was with Arashi. I thought there was no way that any other match professionally could break that record. But hey, we got the US here breaking records.
Leave it up to them, Leave it up to the team led by, I don't know if Kimchi Man's leading them, but, who's over there
horse.
And Flight Horse, maybe. Speaking of the horse, Hylos has been a big pick, and I feel like it's funny as we, kind of joke about it, but yeah, Hylos has been a mainstay, I feel like, in the current meta that's formed here, especially for ISF. wondering if they'll go ahead and do that, because with Ecuador, one thing that really stuck out to me was the lineups that they like to bring to the table. They opted for the Florin, I think it was twice, and they like to play some of that sustain. And I think you and I both pointed this out too. Rosa was such a good player in the gold lane, especially when the Natan got brought up with that and everything. We'll take a look at the rosters as well here in just a second, especially for United States. I think we're kicking it off with them. Let's go ahead and reintroduce them once again. It's Ian Flied Horse, right? Hull. How do you say his last name? Is it Hull?
Hull.
I think it's Hull, right? Hull, yeah. Marcus Melon Tamayo, Justin Tarzan Jongs Jiosong. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, man. Nice try. Seong Hoon Jang and Tan Shark Vo. I don't know if that's right, but also these guys, we know a lot of their IGNs already. Some of you guys might just be seeing them for the first time, of course. But yeah, nonetheless, this is the United States team that I think everybody, if you have missed the American regional qualifiers up to this point, you've seen the clips. Yes. I've seen a lot of your face posted on the clips, even on YouTube, man, because of just what we've seen. Yeah, both of us here appearing up. Some people are really good at editing things too, man. Yeah. I gotta say, the way that they edit their clips, it's getting to a whole new level. So we are also going to be looking at Ecuador's roster once again, introducing them because of, I want to highlight the point here that Rosa really is the standout for me. Not sure if you agree with this, but let's reintroduce them one more time. We got Jose Ayenar Gavilinez, Luis Nicolai Gavilinez, probably related, Juan Rosa Castaneda, Jose Cajil Campos, and Steven Lucas Orozco. It's funny that I'm doing this because literally green is not the color for me to read off, just like LaFell, man. So just like LaFell. But yeah, I love to see it. Do you agree though? Is Rosa the standout here for Ecuador, or do you think there's another player that's worth mentioning also before we get to the matchup?
Definitely for me, it has to be Nicolai as well, right? Because yeah, Rosa, definitely the standout. I have to agree with you there. When he gets his pick on, I would say any of his picks, even if it's the late game, even if it's the early game, he just understands how to utilize the gold lane pick really, really well. And we actually saw some of the item swaps too, which is very, very impressive, by the way, coming in from Rosa. But I think Nicolai deserves a shout out here, an honorable mention at least, right? Because on certain picks like the Juicin, he's an absolute beast in the mid lane, an absolute beast. Just using these picks and really, I would say, dictating a lot of the fights that were shown yesterday in the match. It was very, very close. We went 2 games and it was all 20 minutes plus, right? It was a comeback in game 1, pseudo comeback in game 2.
Pseudo comeback.
They did make a mistake and actually did lead to their opponents coming back a bit in that game. And I would say, now that we've already talked about, how Rose is really good, how Nicolai can also be really, really good on some picks, I think the big concern still for Ecuador is the fact that they've made so many mistakes previously, right? And it's up to them right now to how they've actually improved, because one day usually is not a lot of time to improve, but for some reason the IESF regional qualifiers for Africa, for Asia, and now for America, we're seeing a lot of adaptations being made on the go, even between games, and it's really fast to see their progression. Their progression has been very, very impressive, right? And I don't know if they can improve to a point where they can actually beat US. But if they have a good showing here, I think it proves that, the future of MLBB, at least for Ecuador, is going to be bright. The fact that they are playing in their first ever international regional qualifier, I don't believe I've seen them before. And they're already doing this well. They're already performing really, really well on some of these picks. Hey, America has a good future ahead of them.
Definitely. And I think part of it too is always the way that I look at IESF, even when, I know we casted also different qualifiers last year online. And that was always the exciting thing about it, is seeing some of the newer players, newer regions that you don't typically get an opportunity to. I felt like we really felt like this when we were in the South Africa qualifiers, right? Because again, regions that we don't know too much about, and then they get to come to the platform, IESF, compete and make a name for themselves, and then eventually you see them in person. Like, we will get to see, these competitors that do qualify for WEC in person, and you get to see some more of their stories and hear their personal stories on how, because when you think about it, like, really when it comes down to it, it's like, man, there's there's this much exposure out there of MLBB in these different parts of the world, and
Right?
people like competing at a higher level, you know, and some of them are really like yearning for that opportunity to compete. So that's what I love about ISF, because it gives them that opportunity to do that. And you know, they start to build their own kind of stories along the way, and I love to see it, because I know the women's games also started. So you guys that are viewing right now, if you want to keep an eye on the MLBB women's games happening for the American Regional Qualifiers, I believe it's only one day. Like, it's only today. They'll finish it all up today. Shout outs to Burger Kim and Arashi. They're the ones casting that, so they have all the matches. Me and Mirko will just be handling the ones here. If you guys are holding up two streams, you know, maybe you got the dual monitor going on, or you just got two tabs. Also, keep an eye on the official website, isf.gg, to go ahead and stay updated to all that's happening. Because I know for the women's, I was checking things out earlier with the games. There's some familiar names there too, right? We actually just got to see a lot of those names compete recently for MWI, of course. So when I got to see that some of them are in the roster here for ISF as well, from a couple different teams, I was like, all right, this is exciting. You know, it gives them another international tournament to compete in and experience.
Yeah, again, for the longest time, I think this is, by the way, this is the first time ever that we have a women's division for ISF MLBB, right? So it's great that, again, the women are getting more platforms to actually perform, to actually compete on stage, because we did just see MWI, and that already was amazing, right? The fact that we had a new stage, but now I think it's an added bonus, because at MWI, it was them representing their organizations, which is cool.
Yeah.
But now we have them representing their nations, which I think takes them to a whole other different level of, you know, national pride, obviously, right? They're representing their countries. They're definitely going to be more proud. And I can't wait to see them as well later on at WEC 24, because, man, at this point, whether it be the women's, the men's, it's a different style, definitely, but they're both equally exciting, right? For the men's, I think it's more tactical, definitely a little bit more disciplined, more strategic. But we get to see the older versions of MLBB technically in the women's side, with them just constantly going for brawls here and there, going for pickoffs. And I think it's just great to see, especially in this meta where you already are kind of forced to brawl every single time. They got rid of the Lord Dance, right? This is the meta to do that. And
what do they call it now? The Lord Tango?
The Lord Tango. I don't even think you can call it the Tango, right? It's just the Lord. It's the Lord Battlefield. The Lord Pit is no longer a pit. It's just a battlefield for everybody to go ham in. And for the most part, that's why we're seeing so many picks, like even the Edith come out, and heck, even the Kufra. A lot of proactive picks, but also good reactive engagers like the Kufra coming back into the meta, really punishing and going for a lot of these big fights. So I'm excited to see what the United States actually want to go bring up today. I don't know if they want to go for the normal style here, because we're already in playoffs and they're technically fighting for their lives here, for their slot into WEC. So I don't think they'll be taking a risk of going for those, you know, ridiculous compositions. But if they are that confident in their ability to perform at the highest level with the retribution, with the arrival, I say do it. I say go for it, right? If you actually want to do it, sure. Because I've seen this actually. And I am not proud of this, by the way, but I mentioned I mentioned it in the stream, in the game itself, that I really hope no one takes inspiration. That no one takes this as inspiration in their ranking. But I've been seeing it pop up in a lot of different streams, like Indonesian streamers.
You know who we blame?
Exactly. We blame Mr. Kimchi Man, Shark, White Horse. We blame Tarzan and Melon too, because they were a part of it too.
They were a part of it. Not only them, but all the Clippers, man. They were a part of it.
All the Clippers.
It's, you know, they should have added that line with what you said. Like, let's hope this doesn't end up going out there, right?
I think some of them did.
Games, basically. Okay, did they? Okay, hopefully more of them did. Just to note too, we are just waiting to go to the draft here. I think the players are still getting, you know, things situated. But I think it's a good thing to put out there, is like, does the United States feel confident enough against Ecuador? Even though, you know, Ecuador has done amazing things, but yeah, I think as we were going through their games, we were pointing out like some of the weak points that they had, some of the decision making that they had, and even highlighting the strengths, of course, like the fact that they did turn those games around when they're. Remember when their base was fully open, it was exposed, but they somehow held it together to end up getting a comeback victory. So I think like Ecuador has a lot of good opportunities here to hopefully honestly bring us to a game 3. I still think, a lot of people are going to say this is USA winning this. Obviously, just the amount of experience that they have and what they've shown. It's just more so like, yeah, what is USA cooking this time? Like, are they actually going to bring a standard lineup, I guess you could say, like a standard lineup, or do they opt for a little more cheese strats until they eventually get to if they are the ones to qualify for WEC, then do we see something different from that point, So I think that's the main thing for a lot of people watching, just because of, again, their last game that they played against Mexico was not streamed. I think maybe it was put out there. I'm not sure if Wide Chicken was actually putting it out there, like while they played, maybe on his stream or something. Yeah. But at least on broadcast here, we didn't get an opportunity to see that. So I don't know. Did you happen to see anything? Were they playing regular lineups for that?
Yeah, they were playing regular lineups up against Mexico, and I think they just won 2-0 right there. So again, when they are up against opponents they think actually, are really, really good and can actually punish those kind of cheese strats, they will go back to the traditional lineups, to the orthodox lineups. And lucky for us, we don't get to see that, up against the top teams, because if it becomes meta all around, if that becomes a new meta, Bhutan definitely have to do a lot of fixing there, right? Instant patch probably coming out tomorrow if that happens. But we're still waiting on the players right now, once again, guys, so please do be patient with us. Actually, shout out to Wolf, who's actually, catching this new coaching staff Wolf. Technically now. Yeah. And hey, I'm glad that he's actually taking a look at the American regional qualifiers as well, and taking a look at all the crazy metas here and there to really see if this is going to be the future meta. I don't know if he's going to try to do that as well, take inspiration. I really hope you don't, by the way. Wolf, if you are watching, don't take inspiration, don't bring 5 retries and 5 arrivals to your region. But hey, I'm glad that we get to see it here, at least, right? It's still something very cool to see here and there. It's really, really very exciting. And I would say, I think for this matchup especially, considering Ecuador has also been going on a few games, really trying out new strategies, really trying out new compositions as well. I'm definitely going to be interested to see if Team US want to still try to go for, even their standard composition, which is more of like the fighters in the jungle. We've been seeing a whole lot more fighters in the jungle paired to assassins for the American regional qualifiers, because for the most part in the first phase, it's almost always banned out. You always see the Lings, Hayabusa, even the Fanny is actually banned out in the first phase. So it actually does leave open a whole lot of the other fighters to be picked up, and all the other assassins that we are used to seeing, like the Lancelot even and the Nolan, we haven't really been seeing too much of. We're really just trying to go for, I would say, a bit more efficiency when it comes to the farming as well, when you go for fighters like the Alpha. And yeah, definitely going to be very, very cool to see whether they actually still go for that, or whether they actually want to let go of a lot of these big picks that will definitely be a big of a, I would say a little bit of a curveball, which is strange. Right, Naisu, you see him right here, guys. He's definitely just agreeing with everything I say right now. But jokes aside, I think the meta is in a really good spot right now where a lot of different picks can actually work. But okay, we're just going to get straight into the draft right now. USA on the blue side. We have Ecuador on the red side. Roger, Juicin, and the Zask banned out. USA banning out the Ling, the Ruby, and the Chip. So this is something that we have been seeing a whole lot of from USA too, guys. The fact that they always are the ones banning out the Chip, whether they're on blue or on red, and the prio instantly over to the Alpha that we were talking about earlier. The fighters in the jungle over the assassins that you're used to seeing. I don't know if Ecuador want to go for the Hayabusa here to try to go up against the Alpha, but USA usually go for very beefy compositions together with the Edith, and sometimes they actually still like to go for Minotaurs too, with Shark here. A lot of different ways that Shark can take this. He played the Cho last time, so don't count that out away from him right here. Let's see Ecuador's picks. With the Juicin and Zask and even Roger banned out, it's going to be really, really hard to actually pick up a flex pick here in the first phase. Because, again, usually we do see the Ruby, the Roger, or at least the Zask there. But now for Ecuador, I think a good pick would be like something like a Valentina too. with the Terizla, just a solid pick in the XP lane, but they actually prioritize the Florin over the Valentina, which does give USA a chance to pick up the Valentina for themselves, and that would definitely be a massive pick for them, because not only can they steal the Florin ult, they can also steal the penalty zone, and it kind of forces Ecuador to stop going for the big ultimates in the next few picks that they go for. So for Team US, again, Valentina comes to mind almost instantly when you see this composition from Ecuador, and they really want to set up for the Alpha. I would say it really depends now, right? I mean, they could pick up an XP lane also here, because it does seem like for Ecuador, they are planning to go for the Terizla here to set up for an assassin jungle, or just a damage dealer. It doesn't necessarily have to be an assassin. And for USA, they need to start to build either a very strong mid duo with a Minotaur and with a Valentina. That would be pretty solid. Or they get some side lane pickups here, and they do go for the Moskov. Or it does seem like that's Melon. And actually, I don't know if this is Melon. We saw in the lineups that it was Melon, and I'm looking back at it, it's T who's actually playing. So doesn't seem like Shark is going to be playing here. T will be subbing in, I'm guessing, for Shark, and he's on the Minotaur. I'm not too sure who laning is, but Moskov's going to be picked up for laning. And for Ecuador, let's take a look at their final pick here. Up against the Minotaur, up against the Moskov and the Alpha. Whether they want to go for more dive or they pick up a jungle. Okay, they go for the Export, which is probably going to go to the jungle here. And there's no flex picks at all, technically, for both of these sides here. For USA, Moskov, Minotaur, Alpha, we all know where they're going to go. You know, the Minotaur obviously going to be the roam, Moskov gold, and Alpha in the jungle. Florin going to be in roam. And usually we do see still that, you know, the Terizla can be flexed into roam. The Florin being there, though, definitely scratches that out. You don't want, you can't see the Terizla in roam anymore, and it'll probably be the Exborg in the jungle. But let's welcome back Naisu here.
Hello,
Naisu,
man.
You were smiling a whole lot, man. You were agreeing with everything I said. I appreciate that.
Hey, man, I don't know what happened. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. You know, middle of the night things, I guess, over here with the internet. But I'm gonna catch up with you. Let's see. Okay, first phase for USA. It looks like they're going at least with the standard, of course, kind of lineup. And I don't want to repeat points you probably already said, so let's just go to these second phases of the bans here. Hayabusa being taken out, looks like, of course, for Ecuador. They don't have the jungle option yet. We did see an Exborg jungle yesterday, though, surprisingly, right? And it ended up working out pretty well. I see that they still went with the Florin. This was like a back-to-back pick for them yesterday that they ended up really enjoying. And I think, too, I don't know, man. This is also, Ecuador was the team also to switch roles, like sometimes mid-series, you know? So I'm wondering if they end up doing that here. Natan's a good ban. Obviously, Rosa was amazing on that. And so we'll see if they actually go and lock in the gold lane this time. Maybe what's left open? Claude? Maybe the Claude against this Moskov carry. I think so far, though, he's brought out some, you know, unorthodox picks, at least for the gold lane. But with those bans coming out, I think, yeah, you kind of, if you want to go the safe route for Ecuador, just pick up maybe the Claude here.
Yeah, I think the safe choice has got to be the Claude, you know, especially up against the Minotaur. It's a give and take, technically, right? Because for the carry, I do think you actually, there are more ways to try to outplay the Moskov with the carry, I would say, in the early levels. But for the Claude, it's going to be a bit more tough up against the Moskov, who can just decide when to go for the Spear of Misery to stop him from getting farm. And usually, you know, Moskov is already a very, very good pick up against the Claude, because whenever you want to BMI forward, Moskov can just say, nah, disengage, and, you know, Spear of Misery away. So Ecuador actually go for a bit more range here. And I really like this pick. We've been seeing a whole lot more Sicilians in the meta currently because of the how many more frontliners we are seeing from the teams here in American regional qualifiers. And the Sicilian actually has, I think, 100% win rate right now. So really impressive win rates. And for US, they definitely need to try to go for some dives. And just like that, they go for the Lunox too. Knowing that right now there's an Exborg, there's a Terizla, going to be some beefy frontliners for Ecuador. They go for the Lunox, you know, trying to melt these frontliners down. And the Edith pick for the XP for Mr. Horse. I'm a bit disappointed. You know, I expected the horse, but it's okay.
The horse.
The Edith is close enough.
All right, Edith. Yeah, this is, again, They could have gone, of course, with the Hylos here, but I think Edith still serves that purpose of it's such a good, reliable pick. You get to bring a bunch of CC already paired up with a Minotaur. Like, that's quite devastating. And part of this, okay,
Ooh.
Ecuador is actually going to bring out the Clint, which is funny because we've talked about the Clint being like this hero for this region. Like, American regionals have loved the Clint, and they've found, they found it to be a pretty good pick, at least for some of the other teams here. But we'll see if Rosa once again can pop off on here. And I think it's a good point too. Sicilian man has. I didn't know it was 100%, actually. I was thinking it was like 75 plus, but if it's 100% win rate, this is insane because, yeah, the scaling potential on this hero obviously is a big part of that. That's the only thing, though. You're up against, you have a Lunox here. So the damage, I feel like, from the Lunox is going to hurt a lot sooner, especially if they get a lead, momentum built up early on. And that's the thing, too. This is an alpha in the jungle, which... going against the Exborg jungle here, right? Should do all right. I think as long as your rotations are set up properly, you can focus on the objectives there the way you want. Then USA has a good, solid, standard lineup. The other flip side of this is Ecuador, very Ecuador lineup here that we get to see from them. So we'll see if it's enough to actually go ahead and deal with what USA wants to do with this one, but. With all that being said, we're going to be jumping into the land of Dawn here. It's a best of 3 between these two teams, United States and Ecuador, fighting for one of the slots here for the WEC. It's a best of 3, so it starts here in game number 1. We'll see. Ecuador came back from some great games yesterday, even being down. They showed discipline, so we'll see if they can do it here. Taking a real quick, look at the emblems. Nothing crazy really popping out. Einar did go with the Brave Smite. Has that. You got the focusing mark on Cahill. That could help them out with some of the bursts that they're trying to get here. I think my biggest worry for Ecuador's lineup is, once again, the Edith Minotaur combo.
Definitely, right? I mean, very reactive, too, up against a composition that technically wants to also go for these fights. I mean, for Luca, it's a good engage tool that he has with a penalty zone, unless he's trying to just utilize it to peel for Rosa, which is also a pretty good strategy. As long as they go equal in the early game, I would say this is going to be still very, very good for USA because they do have some solid scalers with the Esports, with the Sicilian, and honestly, the Clint's not bad either because he is a lane bully up against the Moskov. That's a really good pick up against the Moskov already. Moskov is definitely going to have a hard time here in the lane itself. Whenever he wants to go for trades or minions, he's definitely going to have to get punished with a few of those basic attacks and even the quick draw. It does a whole lot of damage, but again, it is T and a laning training arc. So, not too sure who's actually playing here. I know who T is, but usually I believe he's the XP. So, seeing him in Rome is definitely already very unique from Team USA. Maybe it's Shark, but maybe he just changed his name, right? We see Hoon change his name all the time. Now he's Kimchi Man, and Fried Chicken is now Fried Horse.
Yeah, I was gonna say I guess they just went with the name change as well, maybe for laning training arc, but this is an easy objective being secured here already for United States. So, the very standard setup that they do, this is a thing, teams with these kind of lineups and the experience that they have, that they're going to hit those timings. And so off to this kind of standard start already. Meanwhile, Ecuador is farming up the best they can. I think part of this too is just the fact that their lineup needs a little more time to build up. So it's okay if they don't just go and start to, fight right away anyway, or possibly even give up that first turtle. You can see them starting on the buffs here. Einar trying to work on this orange buff, but T's got the information. Tarzan might want to press this one in.
Yeah, Tarzan walks up. The orange buff gets secured still by Einar. Now gets caught with the Sanguine Claws, and they're actually going to go in. Last Insanity, Tarzan going to fall first blood over to Einar. Definitely a miscalculation from Team USA. And at the bottom side of the map, we do see that White Horse is actually going to pop into Primal Wrath in a 1v1 up against Lucas. Lucas is still able to survive under that turret, but hey, Ecuador, pick up the kill on the board. And to remind all of you, this is a qualifier match. Whoever wins this will be able to qualify. White Horse is going to be caught, forced to flick around, and Lucas is right there to might be able to get another kill, and it's Einar who picks up the first 2 kills in the game.
Wow, Ecuador coming out swinging, coming out hot in game number 1. And that's the fact that they get those 2 early kills too for Einar. I was wondering about the matchup in the jungle against the Alpha, but having this upper hand, they should be able to actually go ahead and scale up pretty well now with confidence in even going into this turtle. You're seeing the first items not there just yet, but it looks like it's going to be Enchanted Talisman first over here for Kimchi Man. Of course, too, you got just the leg plates right now for T. Gets that little bit of extra defense. And over on the other side, nothing locked in just yet, but the early start that they get keeps them even with USA in terms of economy, and that's good. That's good for Ecuador. Again, a lot of that's in INR's hand now. There you go. He's got the battle axe now. Now he can go ahead and start this up, the war axe. So he gets the orange. I don't think they're going to be in here in time for the turtle. So, all right, Ecuador is just like, you know what? We're not going to worry about the turtles. I don't know if that's just a decision, like we're just going to go ahead and get these buffs and we don't want to fight, but I thought they would be in a good position to actually contest that one.
Yeah, despite the lead they got with the 2 kills, I think it's a good decision for Ecuador not to take these fights, at least the first 2 turtles, right? And then they can actually look to go to contest for the 3rd turtle, because again, if you take a look at their composition, this is a scaling comp. Einar, even with the 2 kills, still needs to scale up, still needs to wait for some of those items. Bottom lane though, gonna go in. Last insanity, Einar is on a killing spree, but now might be caught. Tarzan, Spirit of Alpha to the front there. The healing is there, but Einar will be shut down. That's a massive bounty over to Tarzan. What happened on the other side? Kimchi Man finding a kill, and in the bottom side of the map, it's again Lucas and Cahill. Everyone's getting picked off.
Everyone's getting picked off. Yeah, Kimchi Man able to get a kill himself. So in a split little matter of what, 60 seconds or so, or a minute, they get multiple fronts here for USA. And yeah, you were just saying, Mirko, the Ecuador lineup is a scaling lineup. You need some time, maybe that's why they gave up the first 2 turtles, just to focus on getting especially the stacks here for Nikolai. But with that happening, like, you further set yourself back. I mean, it's a very small gold lead that they built up. So at this point, Ecuador, do they not have enough firepower yet to deal with this? They got healing, at least you have that. Again, they went with this Florian pick multiple times yesterday alone. Endless Battle being picked up here by Rosa, so Rosa's got that, but I think that's the question. We have to see if they're actually going to be able to contest the next one, or maybe the whole plan is to just buy enough time to get the stacks you need for a Lord, but I just don't think USA, with what happened previously, I don't think they're going to let that happen.
That should be the plan for Ecuador. That should be the way they actually go. And that's why they didn't contest for the first 2 turtles. And at this point, because they lost a massive fight in the bottom side of the map, losing 3 members, I don't think they can even contest for this. They get a little bit of poke there with Rosa actually getting a bit of damage, but still really just waiting on the timers here for Nikolai, Rosa, and for Cahill. But at this point, I don't know if they actually want to be staying up top. Spirit of Destruction, the connecting Spirit Misery coming down, and my god, what happened to Gale's HP? Obliterated in a split second. As in the bottom lane, they will have to just let go of that turret. Good rotations, or at least good mirroring for Ecuador. At least at this point, they're able to find trades on the map.
Well, such a good Spirit of Destruction. Laning training arc, able to find the mark and then just burst down. Cahill, even having this healing, like, it's just not going to help with that kind of burst. And like, you're looking at the macro play right now happening from USA. They're making the moves around the map, and it's kind of tough to deal with, because even Einar, he's falling behind in terms of the jungle, the level that he had. So even with those early kills, the 2 kills that he got early on, finds himself still trying to keep up, with Tarzan. And that's... Oh, hold on. He could be in trouble. Okay, he pops the last insanity because he's got to be on the defense, but look at the bottom.
Yeah, Kimchi Man wanted a Brilliance. T able to escape there from the bad impact. Rosa's trying to go for the chase. T gets the Flask of the Oasis. Cahill might be able to stop the recall, and he does. Even though he doesn't connect the stun over mid lane. Seems like it's going to be a skirmish again. The penalty zone actually connecting on laning training arm, but he's still going to be able to kite away. White Horse walking forward, getting the kill, and saving laning training art, who has to flicker out there.
Yeah, defensively, but still, they keep things together. Ecuador still farming up. I think that's the main point. Again, why we highlighted, especially Rosa, coming into the matchup. He's going to be a key component for them to hopefully fight into this, especially the Lord. You can see he's only got the Endless Battle, still working on the next item here. And for the rest of them, you got Dominance Ice, you got the Glowing Wand, of course, for Nikolai, still building up. You got also, too, the Flask of the Oasis is now there for Cahill, so this should be enough to kind of help them out, but I don't know. I guess they still just look how fast the Lord is going down. You don't have a chance or an opportunity at all to even get in the area.
Not at all. And even now, for Einar, the fact that they have a lot of poke, T can actually just sustain back up. Einar wins out that red tree battle there, and it gets him back to at least just down for 1 level. Because for the most part, it has been Tarzan leading with 2. They go into the bottom side of the map now, going for that turret down below. And if you take a look at the damage dealt, 16,000 damage. Most of the damage actually has been coming through Kimchi Man on the Lunox, which is definitely an interesting member to have the most damage in the early game, right? You'd still expect the Lunox to be the one scaling up in this composition with the Moskov, but hey, I guess for Kimchi Man, he just knows how to utilize that damage now. Good Spear of Misery over to Einar. Kimchi Man gonna be chunked so low, forced to use the Chaos defensively. Tarzan is acting as the front line there, trying to stop a dive from happening towards Kimchi Man. It does seem like for Hoon this time, he's going to be forced to recall as the Lord spawns up top and is marching down. Tarzan tries to utilize this pressure to get control over the orange buff that is going to be spawning. White Horse in the bottom side of the map will actually be able to pick up a turret there, even without the Primal Wrath. Mid lane, laning training arc, getting the tier 1. Now the Lord on it. Penalty zone locking him down. Tarzan still able to disengage. T has to walk out of it and will be able to do so. This time Tarzan still taking the orange buff away for himself as he's looking go for it. Good Sanguine Claws to stop an engage from happening. T walking forward, getting the knockout Spear of Alpha onto Lucas, who doesn't have the penalty zone, but does have a whole lot of healing and sustain. Body of Smith definitely, taking part in that crazy tankiness of his.
Keeping them together, yeah, like you mentioned too, with the healing from Kahil here. So right now, I would say Ecuador, it's almost like you're just trying to stop the bleeding, and that's been the case for the majority of this game because they're just playing to the tune of USA right now, and like we kind of expected with the lineup that they have, it's more so like they want to get to the late game. If they have to lose their turrets, I guess at this point in the objectives, then at least it gets them to a point where they're just farming up, getting the stacks that they need. You can even see here too, like the damage earlier on from Rosa was good. Rosa plus the bad impacts from Nikolai, that frontal focal point that this lineup gives them it can be a threat as long as they stay alive and as long as they have the peel they need, because at some point too, T could just decide to go ahead and flicker in Minoy and Fury, and they have a lot of frontal ways to go forward against Ecuador. So it's almost like this push and pull where Ecuador has to be very conscious about how far front they are and not to get cut off between their front line and the back line, of course, because they only have really relying on their flickers and then the heals coming out from Kahil. So for Ecuador, again, as they go ahead and stack up, you saw earlier when we took a look at the damage too, Nikolai was doing a lot of damage. Like he has it, but at one point, if you just get crashed down on, you only have a flicker, and maybe if you can land the claws. But see, again, did they actually get here in time? I think they're way too late to the Lord.
Good Sanguine Claw, though, able to get 2. T still able to escape. Spirit Destruction to the back now. White Horse flickering forward. Rose going to be targeted down, and White Horse gets it. Knocked down by the penalty zone. Now knocked up again, though. White Horse still able to sustain for a bit, but will be slain. Meanwhile, laning trading arc. Look at the piercing damage through the minions. Almost taking Cahill down. For USA, they pick up the second Lord, and I think that might have been the fastest second Lord that we've seen in the American Regional Qualifier, because it's not even an enhanced Lord. It's still the little small one.
Oh man, they blew through the Lord, and now they're just going to go through these turrets too. I feel like the training arc is almost completed here. The laning has been completed, and now they're up to the base.
If this is a training arc, you can already imagine later on what the arcs are going to be here, because he's already really looking good for just being in the laning training arc. So to be fair, he's not laning anymore, right? So at least that part of the name is already inaccurate. The training arc part, I don't know. If this is still his training arc, he's definitely got a lot of potential here, especially as we get towards the later stage of the game, as he gets level 15 here in the 13th minute, and I'll be very interested to see what items he's already picked up in the first 13 minutes at this point, right? Because on the Moskov, 3 assists, but getting a whole lot of farm. Does he have all the 3 item power spikes that he needs, plus the Malefic Roar, or is he going for a bit more defense against Nikolai, who's pretty well stacked up?
Yeah, that's 51,000 damage already too, and he just picked up the Divine Glaive. So, if at any point, this is where I was saying, at least for Ecuador, they're clearing up the lords plus those charged up minion lanes too pretty well. And I think, that's something that they can play into. If they can get another 5 minutes or so, or maybe be in a position to actually contest the next lord, because you got the Ice Queen wand now too, plus the immortality here for INR. So defensively, things are falling into place for Ecuador. They should be able to go ahead and at least be in the zone against this lord take, because like we saw earlier, it happens so fast. If USA decides to give it a go, they burn through that lord, and I think Ecuador cannot continue to let that happen, for the third, fourth lord, or whatever this ends up getting to. But looking at that items from the USA too, they're pretty much locked in, nearly working on their last couple items here for some of them. But defensively too, they have a great front line, they have a great peel if they need it. But so far from what we've seen, even from laning training arc, he hasn't really needed it. The positioning that he's getting with the Spear Destruction has been on point for the most part, and he's able to put down pressure on these side lanes too, and that's something that Ecuador always has to deal with, because that's what they're going to go for now. Lord comes up in about 15 seconds. You keep laning training arc there and put pressure on that side lane, and it's easy to land the Spear Destruction when they're all bunched up around the Lord, and that's what they could bank on. But again, who is going to handle that? Who's going to handle the waves from Ecuador? And that's something they have to decide. Of course, Nicolay should be able to do it really quickly, but look at this again. Lord's just going to be taken down in an instant.
Yeah, and this is the strength and the weakness technically for Team Ecuador, because technically when it comes to clear, they're really, really good. They have a Clint, they have an Exborg, and they have a Sicilian. So maybe that's the whole strategy here. They're just going to turtle in their base, wait for USA to make a mistake, and then punish them if they make that mistake. But it has to be a big one, like a massive mistake for USA here, because for Ecuador, what they have in defense, wave clear, they lack in a whole lot of the skirmishing power, because if they do go for a dive against Team USA, who are at this point are 11,000 gold ahead, like we expected, or like I assumed earlier, it's actually the defensive items that laning training arc has actually opted for. Not going for the Malefic Roar this time, not going for extra damage, but going for the Wind of Nature and the Rose Gold Meteor. And I think this is a very wise choice to go for. Up against a composition that wants to just turtle in their base, you gotta go for the defenses, and you just gotta go and start hitting the turrets, right? It's all about sieging at this point. Once those base turrets get taken down, Kimchi, man, forced to use a Brilliance already. But at the bottom side of the map, laning training arc, doing a whole lot of damage, picking up the base turret, and also up top. Despite Ecuador's amazing wave clear, they're not able to actually manage the waves properly here. And it's going to be another wave in the mid lane. Flying Horse! An amazing Earth Shatter now into the Spear of Alpha, and now they all get knocked up. The turret going to be taken down. Trading Arc jumping forward with the Spear of Destruction. Luca's going to be taken down under the base there. But no, he still survives with the Flask of the Oasis. Now going straight for the base itself. 16 minutes. It's a winner crowned by Tarzan as they end the game to secure game number 1.
United States, they pretty much controlled the majority of that game, aside from that early kill that went over to INR, and a couple more moments here for Ecuador. But overall, very standard here for United States and Ecuador with that scaling lineup. Even when they were scaling and they had the scalability, it's just they couldn't make use of it. And what use is a scaling lineup if even towards that late game and you're defending in your base, you can actually win that fight. You have all those items that you need. The stacks were there for the Sicilian, but unfortunately by then it's almost too late, and you're forced to fight. That's one of the things there too, is because of the Minotaur, because of the Edith available to the United States, they could just force a setup, and multiple members got caught into that Minoan Fury at the end, and they just ended up falling apart. So really, like, that's the thing. It's almost to a point where it's like you spend this entire 10 to 15 minutes building something up, and then at the end it's like you don't even get to use any of that. You know what I mean? And so for Ecuador, they've done this before. Unfortunately, against a team like United States, it's a little bit more difficult to make that defense, make that turtle defense work, and then turn the game around. You know what I mean? And as we look at the highlights here from this game, you're going to see it. It was a good start, I would say. They got the first blood. They got the 2 kills here in INR. But even with that, because of the macro decisions from United States, again, a very experienced team, they kind of negate that by just playing the macro level and getting a lead, and then eventually they're able to find the pickoffs of their own. And this is where that switch already started 5 minutes in. They controlled all the objectives. They controlled a lot of the movement around the map. And I feel like there was just too much pressure everywhere for Ecuador to deal with. And even when it came to the Lords, the clear speed was good because, again, the lineup that they brought to the table, this Clint plus the Sicilian are great at clearing. But, how do you do this against a highly mobile hero like a Mozkov? And that's what we saw from laning training arc. I mean, he's sitting there 1 versus 3, just dashing around, and that's the hard part about especially the Sicilian. Like, it's going to be so difficult to catch it with a Sanguine Claws, and even Rosa has to be kind of careful. And then, of course, your setup is really just a penalty zone. I think that's the problem, because once Sanguine Claws are done, like, you got penalty zone and that's about it, man. And unfortunately for Ecuador, even though they had that, there was no initiation from them. They were just responding to what United States were doing. And I think that's where it was really a fault in the lineup that they had and how they executed it here. But yeah, United States really controlling the entirety of the game.
I definitely think it's more of an execution problem, right, for Ecuador, because, well, obviously the draft, definitely I would say Team USA, they've got a solid draft too. They have solid answers to the frontline composition and the full front to back comp that Ecuador gone for themselves. But really, for Ecuador, I understand what they were doing for the most part in this game, right? Giving away the turtles, knowing that they are scaling composition, knowing that they technically don't have anyone they can set aside from the Terizla. And with the Florida in the early game, you can't really go for the contest on the turtle. So that's completely fine. Gotcha. First 2 turtles, letting it go, completely fine. But then after that, letting go of the 3rd turtle, letting go of the Lord, every single one of the Lord. I don't know. It just comes down to how Ecuador, I think, didn't know when their power spikes would actually hit, because I think by the end of the game, Einar had already hit his power spike, Nicolay and Rosa as well.
Yeah.
But they didn't know, or maybe they just weren't aware of those power spikes, so they just played it safe all the way to the very end. And in a game like this, at a stage like this, where it's your tournament lives that you're fighting for, I think playing it safe is the riskiest move you can do, because it gives over so many more, opportunities for USA to take over. And again, for USA, they're not a team that would make a massive mistake when they have an 11,000 gold lead. That just doesn't, suit this lineup. With White Horse always also just consistently making those engages happen inside of the base. Well played to them. Really well played for USA. Able to combo it together. And again, well played for them to actually adjusting to the playstyle of Ecuador, where they didn't go for the contest. They didn't try to force anything out. They just went for the neutral objectives, played with a solid lead, and ended the game in the end. But the player of the match here, this is definitely still laning training arc on a training arc, because he got 0 kills that game. 0-0-4. But it was all about the sieging. It was all about, the lanes itself. And he played it well, despite only being in his training arc.
Well, maybe next game we'll get to see him in a different arc, Maybe it'll be I don't know. I'm not sure
Tournament
where he's
arc.
going to go from there. Tournament arc, maybe. But yeah, like, even though he didn't get any kills, he was able to do quite a bit of chaos on the back line, like, just because of the way that the Mozkov worked. So, congratulations there. Game number 1 for the United States. Ecuador is definitely going to have to kind of readjust before that. So we're going to give a little bit of a break, of course, to our players while they get set up for this game number 2. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Again, I'm Nice. That's Mirko. We'll be back after this. And welcome back here once again. It is me, Naisu, and Mirko, joining you for the last day of the American Regional Qualifiers here for IESF. It's the road to the WEC, and we are in the middle of this matchup between the United States and Ecuador. United States already at match point. It's 1-0 right now in this best of 3. And you guys missed game number 1. It was pretty, I don't want to say completely one-sided, but it was, it was a definite game for United States. The idea from Ecuador was there, this scaling lineup.
Yep.
And they even got to what was 16 plus minutes, but they just couldn't use that scaling lineup once they had it. So, I don't know. Maybe you can expound on this, Mirko, but like, I'm hoping that Ecuador, they build up a lineup that they can be more impactful in the early game this time around for game 2. Hopefully, that gives them a better start to turn things in their favor.
again, I really feel like for Ecuador, right, it just comes down to them understanding their own composition and understanding when those power spikes hit. Because I think in game number 1, their draft wasn't that bad. It wasn't like a horrible draft.
Yeah.
By all means, it was a draft that can actually work in that situation where you don't go for first 2 turtles, you scale up, wait for the 3rd turtle, and by then you should actually be looking to contest for some of these neutral objectives. The thing is, they didn't. They didn't contest any of the neutral objectives. They didn't even try to step foot in it. And sometimes they actually did. I'll have to say, like the final Lord, they walked up. But at that point, it just comes down to them also hesitating. They gave USA such a big lead. Now they go for the Roger ban again. It's the Alpha that gets banned out too this time. So they're definitely already, you know, taking the
notes.
picks in game 1 to consideration this time around. USA still with a chip and link ban always, and this is something that I've just been seeing from USA. Whether they're on blue, whether they're on red, it is always a ling and a chip ban. So for Ecuador, what's the last ban gonna be here? Are they gonna ban the Juicin or the Zosk, or are they gonna try to pick it up themselves? Because in the previous game on red side, they banned out the Juicin, they banned out the Zosk. They decided to take away the Zosk, and now USA just needs to ban out the Juicin for us to get a very similar game to the previous one.
Yeah, I don't know, unless USA also wants to leave it open, just out of the case of like, hey, do you guys want to take the Jushin? Because if not, we'll take it, you know? Either way, but there's the ban. Covering the bases, ban out the Jushin. What does this leave for Ecuador? Because based on the lineups, like we said, it's been mostly Florent. Wow, they're going to go Hayabusa. Okay. Interesting, too, because when they do this, if I recall, INR role swaps here. So I'm not sure if this is actually going to be Rosa playing the Hayabusa, but again, we'll see what they end up doing. But maybe INR does play it, maybe does play the Hayabusa, but I think this is already, in a way, like this pick alone changes it from the Esports jungle we just saw. You know what I mean? If you can get the early kill here, then you can start to snowball up and do what Ecuador wants to do with the pick that they prioritize. I think on the flip side, though, USA, they have a lot left open. Turizla's still there. Edith, like we saw them bring up to the table for Hylos, possibly if they wanted to. Ruby's going to be the choice. And this is interesting. Is this a debut pick? Because I know we haven't seen all the games on stream, but have we seen a Dyroth yet? At least on stream?
No, I don't think we have seen a Dyroth at all. And I think it's a really good choice to go for Dyroth here, technically for USA, because in the first phase, it's flex. It's very flexible with the Ruby, too. Ruby can go Roam, can go XP, can go Gold. One of the only, you know, heroes right now that can actually go 3 lanes, can be flexed to 3 lanes. But for the Dyroth, I would say it's, yeah, it probably is more likely just 2 lanes that he can be flexed to, XP or jungle. Now that the Alpha's been taken out, I definitely understand the idea, right? There's no true damage, so might as well get pseudo true damage with the physical defense shred of that second skill. But it did just get nerfed, by the way, in this patch. And that's a good Vexana pick, and the Yuzong too. Great disengage up against a composition like this from USA. So now for USA, the pressure's definitely on them to end the first phase with a strong pick. And I think it has to be the gold lane, right? Just to get more prio in the gold lane so they can actually set up for the gold lane later with the last 2 bans. I think that'll be a good option to go for.
Yeah, already though, I like this first phase better for Ecuador, especially with the fact that they got the Yuzhong, they have the Vexana. Vexana is weird because she's been open a lot of the times throughout, you know, the qualifier in general, but teams have just kind of opted for something else, right? But I think she still provides a lot of utility alone, not to mention like burst damage and all that. You know, it works great, but also just having an extra body there with the Eternal Guard, the EG, works out really well. Turizla, like I was mentioning earlier, was open, so USA is going to grab that. So
Dyroth jungle?
So Dyroth jungle, Ruby roam, or I don't think it's going to go in the gold lane, but who knows at this point. But yeah, so Dyroth jungle, how does that work? I mean, Dyroth jungle, the last time I've seen this it's been a while, right? I know it can work, but some teams, it's very niche, I feel like. But against the Hayabusa, I'm trying to think how well that's going to work. Or maybe it's more so of like, come to the objectives and like try to deal with this damage. You know, try to deal with this Abyssal Strike, or even just getting that armor penetration, you know, debuff on any of these members here from Ecuador is going to help enough. Because if you're talking about that, like, The biggest combination is penalty zone into the Abysm Strike, or the Abysm Strike after the penalty zone, right? And that could be quite devastating against the lineup of whatever even the remaining two picks from Ecuador are going to be. You can see USA's focusing on those roaming options, of course, the Edith, the Minotaur route. So this might force Ecuador. Again, I don't 100% know, but Cahill, we have seen him play the Kufra, but lately he's been picking the Florin constantly. So I think this is where the decision comes also for Cahill. It's like, are you going to pick up a setting roamer like the Kufra we've seen him pick up? Maybe the Kaja might be a possible solution too. But the biggest problem with Ecuador is dealing with the amount of crowd control with just a Terizla and a Ruby across from them. And if they get caught in any of that crowd control, it's so easy to set up that Abysm Strike, man. And I think that's really where Ecuador needs to kind of base the remaining last two picks for them.
Definitely, and I think, yeah, there we go. They actually ban out the Valentina too, right? And I think it's a good job there, banning out the Valentina. But technically for USA, they can still go for the Faramis, right? That's still a very, very good pick to go for as well. Though we have seen or heard from other casters and analysts that the Hayabusa is actually a good way to counter something like the Faramis. I would still say it's a solid choice to go for because that's still very conditional, right? The Hayabusa still needs to understand how to target and how to actually go for the Faramis at all times to bait out that Netherrealm. But it's a Melissa pick for USA, which definitely, again, sets up for the Faramis pick because usually, Melissa is a pick that you would go for up against the Faramis. And the fact that they actually deny it away from Ecuador, they pick up a solid, hero for themselves here, is definitely a sign that they can actually go for the Faramis there. But for Ecuador, I think at this point, there are many ways to go up against the Melissa. You can go for the Claude. The Vexana is already a really good option to go for up against the Melissa. So is the Hayabusa. And I will even say Yuzong's not that bad either up against the Melissa because you can still deal damage outside of the go away with your abilities. You're not like fully melee. So I believe should be a Claude to go up against the Melissa. They decide to go for the carry, which I'm not a big fan of at all up against the Melissa.
Okay.
With a Claude open, that's usually the best pick to go for when you want to go up against Melissa. And they go for the Grok too, which I like the Grok actually. Good engage. Instant engage.
Yeah. I would say the Grok was great. I was thinking, maybe Kufra, but this might be the first time, or maybe there was on day one when we got to see Ecuador play the Grok for their lineup there. But either way, it's a setup roam, and I think that's exactly what they needed rather than, for example, the Florin, which we've seen him play multiple times. But yeah, I think it's going to be difficult, to get to Melissa for laning training arc. If you're Ecuador here, they're really going to have to rely on maybe even just having the Vexana to kind of help maybe drop the Eternal Guard, in that area or something. Like that might be the play here for them. But we'll see how they execute this lineup, if they're able to do it better than what we've seen them previous times or for the previous game. USA, though, their lineup is very just well-rounded. I feel like you got your crowd control. You're tanky enough between the Terizla and his passive, and then, of course, the Ruby. Also in a way, too, with Black Shoes. But we'll see. We'll see how they do this, and also how Tarzan goes against the jungle. It is going to be Rosa, though, here on this Hayabusa. Like we mentioned, it is going to be a little role swap. So we'll find out. Again, it's match point right now for the United States. So looking to lock in that first slot to the WEC later this year in Riyadh.
Ooh.
And Ecuador do something about it and kind of bring it to a game 3, hopefully, for them.
I don't know. I can't say I can't say I like it, but I can't say I hate it either because it's match point for USA. So I understand the desperate maneuvers here with the role swap, but I think it might be too much of an ambitious role swap because we have 3 players swapping the roles. It ain't just 2. See, walking up, get into the role. Wolf King Nikolai gonna be zoned away as Cahill walks up with the power of nature. Back to the point. Lucas from XP to gold. Einar from jungle to XP, and Rosa from gold to jungle. So a lot of crazy maneuvers here. Fight Horse already winning up in that lane. Einar still level 2, and half of the turret gold gets taken down. Rosa in the bottom lane does a bit of damage, but won't be able to really take training arc down in the bottom side.
Yeah, good thing T's there too. Laning training arc should be fine. Very deep here from Cahill. He also running the focusing mark emblem on this Grok, so that might be enough to give him that little bit of burst damage if they can get the setup potential they're looking for. plus the Warcry emblem here from Rosa. That's why he continues to stay down here on this side and just put as much pressure as he can, but ultimately they're spending a lot of time down here. And you can see this, Turtle's up, and it started right away from Tarzan. You know, so that's one of the disadvantages, I guess. You spend so much time in one lane, you're gonna get traded for something out here, and United States will do that time and time again. They get that objective in their hands early on. And, you know, little things like that build up the gold lead. It might be, you know, just a few hundred gold for now, but if that keeps happening, then eventually you find yourself snowballing that gold lead. And so for Ecuador, with the lineup that they have here, like we said, they have to be able to kind of get the momentum going. This is not like a super late game scaling composition like we saw in game number 1. So we'll see what they do around with it. Cahill, though, he might get forced. All right, he's going to be all right, but that's the thing. Look at the response here. Nikolai.
Great I'm offended flicker combo from T. You can see the XP lane mechanic shining this time as a roamer on the Ruby there. As Kimchi Man picks up the kill, Tarzan walks up, does a bit of damage, but also, yeah, I mean, back to the point that I made in the draft when the Dairoth was picked up. Dairoth has actually been nerfed, right? The shred isn't as big as it was before, but it's not too big of a nerf. It still does pretty good damage, physical damage shred. So for the Melissa and even for T technically and Fine Horse, they're going to be able to get a whole lot of value from still the second skill. And now laning training arc just in the bottom lane, munching on that turret goal as T zones Lucas away. And this is what I was concerned about when you pick up the carry. It just becomes an auto win lane for the Melissa.
Yeah, it's interesting that they picked it up because, yeah, the Claude was open too, right? And at least in a way, if you had the Claude, you could just clear waves with Blazing Duet. Oh, no.
You go for a Rosa in the midst of it all. Caught in the door. Wolfgang Kimchi Man taking him down. And USA find another kill on the assassin who's just roaming around in the map in the purple buff. The most expensive resource as an assassin gets taken away from him. White Horse also just cutting the waves and also winning out of the trade up against Einar as the turtle spawns in the game. So right for the purple buff into the turtle.
Yeah, United States taking everything here at this point. And that's what I was saying earlier. You know, these little decisions that they're making, these little plays around the map are just going to build up, getting themselves a few thousand gold lead now after this. Very strong start for United States, especially with the lineup they had. And I think it goes back to that once again, you know. Ecuador, they did a multi-role swap, and it's not working for them right now. You know, they really have not been able to do much. Luca's really just trying to farm up the best he can, at least for now, because, you know, in the other lanes, they are falling behind. I mean, even Tarzan being this level 8, being a level above Rosa, but a lot of the times they're so confident in the fact that they can win or put enough damage out on Rosa to force a shadow kill. Because once you have the shadow kill, you know, you don't have that much escape left. You got your quad shadows, and that's about it. So they continue to put the pressure, especially around the purple buff. And they'll continue to do that. Look at this, though.
Again, Nikolai going to be dove on there despite a good Eternal Guard. White Horse still able to escape, and now Cahill is going to be taken out. Abyss of Strike from Tarzan. T traded over. Kimchi Man still able to kite away. Doesn't have the black shoes, but does have the Purify and gets out of that passive. Meanwhile, White Horse walks up forward. Trying to go for Einar, who is in that bush. Trying to go for the passive stacks again on the White Horse, but again with the muddles placed down. Einar very low. White Horse still going for the chase, and it will not be a kill in the end. Tarzan got picked off as well, by the way, on the other side there, as USA still technically win out on the trade. It gets so much more prio on the map.
Yeah, they really went for that. You know, I mean, they chose that fight in between the tier 1 and tier 2 in the mid lane. And then, like you saw earlier, Einar just went down in a 1v1. Earlier, he came down with the dragon form so far away. Rosa, though, will go ahead and get revenge on White Horse. So,
okay,
at least there's a response, you know, at that point. Oh, there's a whole lot happening up top.
Yeah, and a wall charge down below. The muddle's still there. Training Art doing a whole lot of damage onto Cahill, but he does still have the power of nature. Will be able to get away from that one. Trades across the map, like you said. Kimchi Man able to get Nikolai down. Rosa, 6 minutes in, 2-1. Not like they're, you know, in a dominant position, but still decides to go for the Sky Piercer. So I would say it's a bit greedy, but hey, Rosa has 2 kills. So, you know, if there is a hero, or if there is a person right now that can carry the game, probably is Rosa, and he definitely needs those stacks to carry.
He's going to have to be able to do it. Einar, he has the information. Pops the dragon form.
Going again. Oh, Rosa able to go for the steal. Tarzan out retribution, but now jumps back over to Cahill and Ecuador. I'm glad that finally they are able to make some adaptations from game number 1, being super passive, to now actually contesting for the neutral objectives and winning out in the steal. I mean, in the retribution department.
Yeah, all right. You know, still pressure is going to be on the buff here. I think he does manage to get it, though. So Ecuador finds some wins. Again, you know, after a rough start, I would say, in the early game, they're slowly finding some space to move around with. They're slowly getting some kills, of course. Rosa will be able to get his buff because of just the stuff they've been able to do the previous minute. I don't think he's going to out-damage Flight Horse there, but they are going to hold down to the mid-turret the best they can. And so we really have to kind of just break it down in the fact of what are they able to do with these little wins that they're finding, you know, and it really is building some of that defensiveness that they need here on Cahill, on INR to be able to do this. Oh,
again, Rosa going in, just trying to do some damage, but without the, you know, proper stacks placed down, it's going to be really tough. By the way, for Tarzan, I thought with the QC, he would go for more of an offensive build. Conceal. Oh, I'm offended. Flicker not connected. A wall charge also not connecting in the back. Whiffing there. Abyssal Strike still doing a lot of damage. Muddles placed down and still now penalty zone. Locking him down. Tarzan walks forward. Able to get Nikolay too in the passive, or the first kill rather, from White Horse gets him. Kimchi Man getting the kill down as the Black Dragon tries to go for the chase. Kimchi Man trying to sidestep back and forth from the skill shots, but will not be able to escape in the end. Einar and Rosa get the trade, and it's a 3-for-3. White Horse still there. Oh, Training Arc forcing out the Shadow Kill to be used up into the Lethal Wanderer. Rosa able to escape with the... Oh, the goal actually pinned Einar down there. Laning Training Arc gets the last shot with the Muddles.
He's not killless this game, you know? He had to work for that one, but he does get the kill, Laning Training Arc. You can see how much damage this Melissa is already starting to do at this point. And so that's definitely going to be a point of concern here for Ecuador as they get ready for this. Lord's up, though. But like we saw from Rosa in the previous one, if he could just steal this, I know he's still working on the purple buff. He might be a little bit too late. It might just go in the hands here of United States with that. There it is. Yeah. Lord secured. And it looks like, you know, they put enough pressure on Rosa as he's half health, just fighting for the purple buff. So at this point, United States, they get a big objective after quite a, in a way, a messy team fight down in the mid lane earlier on. But still, ultimately, United States knows what they do. They get the objective. They get this lead to work around with, and now their sights are on these tier 2 turrets to work on. Look at that damage. That's INR right there. Just taking a couple shots from Laning Training Arc. And this is why that Melissa, once it gets to this point, the damage is pretty insane.
The Abyssal Strike into the blooms. That's not usually the combo we see for the Dairoth, but hey, still works there. Burst into burst. You don't need the physical defense shred when the guy just melts down from the glooms put down by Kimchi Man, and they're already going to go for the bottom side here. The base turret that they're going to go for. The Holy Defense already popped in, and they still have a massive wave coming into mid lane, the bottom, and the top lane. Rosa walking forward with the Quad Shadow. He's trying to deal as much damage as possible. Now 2 Holy Defenses have been procced and make that 3 with the top lane base turret. Also getting baited out that Holy Defense. So USA, now they're just going to reset again, wait for these waves to come back again. But at this point, I would say just freeze up the waves, wait for the Lord, and start to suffocate Ecuador in their own base. Because at this point, they can't even, walk up to their own jungle without getting pressured. And that's exactly what they're doing. White Horse zoning them away. It's kind of terrified there. A little bit of damage. Oh, penalty zone from White Horse on the back. Cahill doing the same thing with the wild charge, but AR is still going to be taken down. Cahill's next to the chopping block with the Abyssal Strike not connecting. It doesn't even matter. Laning Training Arc just demolishes, melts them down like it's nothing. T with a conceal just to recon their faces. He buys it with a nature now. As a mini wave is still there. The cannon minion gets retreat out. There's another big wave coming down though. Rosa, no shadow kill to play with. 11 minutes in, and they're gonna go straight for Nikolay under the base itself. Rosa can't do anything but just submit to USA. 11 minutes, and it's a 2-0 clean sweep to United States.
And United States will go ahead and do it again. Another sweep here in their favor. This time around with a very strong lineup. No tricks here this time around. Bringing the standard lineups just like they did yesterday against Mexico. And you saw it. This is definitely a very strong contender, I would say, for even moving forward once they get their chance in the WEC because they've locked in that slot. They've made it there. And we'll see, again, how they're able to perform later on in the year, because that happens in November for all you guys waiting for WEC, the road to Riyadh here. But yeah, they get that first slot in. And as you look at the highlights here, United States, man, with the lineup that they had, that's the thing. I think it's nice to see this kind of variation though too, because some of these picks, like for example, we haven't seen the Dairoth jungle. We don't see it too often, I should say. It still is kind of niche for some teams, like we mentioned in the draft. But even the Melissa, to an extent, Melissa, like we saw it pop up a couple times in recent tournaments around, and it works great. It's just obviously you need the right setup. You need to be also protected. Like your go away only helps you so much. But as you saw, even in that push at the 11-minute mark into the base, that go away like allowed them to go ahead and finish the game. You know, they weren't able to push in and get to the Melissa here, get to laning training arc because of that. And the damage was great. This was also a great setup here from Flight Horse. Penalty zone, finding multiple members. Cahill did the same thing on the other side, but ultimately, because of the lead that was here for United States, they were able to do, you know, they were able to win that team fight and then just kind of force their way in to the base here at 11-minute mark. So again, a very decisive victory here for the United States, all around the board, just doing everything they had to, you know, and part of this at the same time was the amount of setup potential coming out from T and Flight Horse, like we mentioned in the draft, was going to be tough to deal with, because whether it's the penalty zone, whether it's an I'm offended, whether it's the don't run Wolf King, like you can do so much with those two heroes alone. And even for Kimchi, man, the Lilia is always going to be a nuisance in terms of, you know, trying to find the right positioning, trying to play around the glooms and dodge those. And then if you're getting slowed or bursted down, and then Melissa, like how do you even get to the Melissa, right? And I think that's one of the things, because if you're talking about this, like Rosa can only do so much. Nikolai drops down the Eternal Guard, and then like Lucas, your range is so short on the carry that it's difficult to get past that point that USA set up. So great execution here from the draft that United States brought. Ecuador, you know, unfortunately for them, that's going to end their run here for IESF. But again, you still got to look at it. They made improvements day in and day out. It's just, unfortunately, you go against a team like the United States, who has all this experience amongst these players. You know, this is where you see that difference. You know, in Ecuador, unfortunately, they had two different lineups from game 1 to game 2 with different goals in mind. And different play styles, but even with this one, even with the triple role swap, it didn't work out for them. So, and Flight Horse going to be the MVP here for this one. Of course, 3-1-9, just a great performance with that Trizla.
Congratulations to Flight Horse for a phenomenal performance. You know, this time really phenomenal stuff, I would say, for every single one of the members coming in for Team USA. But like you mentioned, I think it was just way too ambitious, right? Swapping in 3 different players, swapping their roles.
Yeah,
it definitely is tough. I think just 2 players swapping roles is already tough, right? Because I think for some of these players, the fact that they entered the tournament playing, or, you know, deciding to go for these specific roles, means that they're already more comfortable playing that role, right? Einar in the jungle, Rosa in the gold lane. So when you already swap 2 members out with their roles, that puts them in an uncomfortable spot. But
yeah,
if you do it with 3 members, I don't know about that. It definitely seemed like it was just way too far-fetched, way too desperate. But I definitely understand as well, though. They were in a desperate spot. It was match point anyways. Might as well take the risk, try to win the game with Rosa on the assassin and the Sky Piercer too. You could definitely see that they were desperate, very, very desperate. At least Rosa had 2 kills, so maybe they could have gotten even more kills stacked up, and maybe Rosa would have been able to actually make the game a lot closer. But in the end, Team USA are the ones that will be qualifying into the main stage, WEC 24 for Ecuador. It's a great start for them, and I hope to see more of them in the future.
Yeah, hopefully we do. And you know, I hope between now and then too. Like, I don't know, you know, of course, in all these different regions, what they have available to them to go ahead and like scrim or compete or join these tournaments, but it was great to see them over these 4 days, of course, alongside the other teams, and then hopefully they can continue to practice, and who knows exactly what we'll get to see from them next year, of course. But yeah, United States, they just This, again, a lot of people expected this, I would say, for United States. This is a tournament favorite, at least for the regional qualifiers. I still, from what we saw from this iteration of United States, again, when we think about the previous lineups that we've seen throughout ISF, hopefully, they can take some of this and bring it to the WEC and perform there as well.
So.
They'll have plenty of time to practice. So again, that concludes United States and Ecuador. We still have one more match for you guys, of course. That's going to be Colombia versus Mexico. We are going to be taking a 50-minute break because this is a fixed schedule. It's not rolling schedule for you guys out there. So definitely go grab some snacks or have something to eat because we have a 50-minute break and we'll be back after this.